It's just like buying a PC or buying really anything. A bit of research is always an important one to do to make sure that you're purchasing the right product for your use case. And that's just thinking about it. One of my favorite things about my job specifically is I get to help the staff in the stores learn how to identify what customers would be interested in, what the types of questions they should ask, and then make sure that we get the right product in the customer's hands, because it's great for the brand, it's great for them, it's a win-win for everyone.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Hey folks, greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain, and privileged to have Brett Blackman from HP joining us on the show for the first time. Welcome along, Brett. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Now, especially because you're new to the show, but we'd like to do this anyway, maybe you can fill listeners in on where do you fit in this big wide world of tech? What's your role here in New Zealand? And yeah.
So I'm very privileged to have worked a career with a whole range of different companies, but very, very excited to be working with HP. The title of my job is I'm the master trainer, which is a really cool job for someone who's really uncool.
I'm not sure I'd say that, but we'll come to that in a minute. But
Cool.
Before we jump in, of course, big thank you to our show partners, to 1NZ, 2 Degrees, Spark, HP, Workday, and Gorilla Technology. So yeah, really great to have the support of all of those companies who really stand behind the New Zealand Tech Podcast and have kept us on the air for a long time. So yeah, really, really good to have that support and also access to experts such as yourself, Brett. So looking forward to sort of delving in and picking your brains today. I guess my very first question for you is, what is this master trainer role, right? What does that mean you get to do? You trip around the country? And
Yeah, absolutely. I get to play with all the toys, all the devices, which is something that's really exciting. But if I was really to think about what I really do, I take the what, the how, and then the why, and try to make it digestible for the people in the stores who are selling our products and talking to customers, but then also directly for customers. The truth is not everyone is technical. And I've certainly, over my years, learned that. And everyone has a different understanding of how technology works. So I think that, if anything, is my superpower, is taking the technical and the difficult, trying to make it digestible for everyone.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, and look, it's often a challenge with technology where new technology comes in, and then how do you actually get that fully adopted within organizations? How do you ensure that you get the best out of it? And often that doesn't happen. So it's an important role, and I think something that stretches across all of our lives, from as consumers and in the workplace. There's probably not one of us who knows everything, so there's always
Totally.
that opportunity to learn. So that's really good.
Absolutely.
And how did you come to end up at HP? Because last time we were interacting, you were at Samsung.
I was.
And then you turn up today, and it's like, oh,
I know that guy.
He's Mr. HP now, Mr. Blackman. But yeah.
Look, I spent a lot of time there, and I learned a bunch, and I worked with some of the greatest people ever. But one of the things, I guess, for all of us and everyone's progression is to learn more. And I think this industry is a really exciting one. As someone who's built PCs for nearly 20 years, just as a hobby, it's kind of exciting to now get paid to do something that I love. I love phones, don't get me wrong. I love all those things too, but I definitely love PCs as well.
Yeah, nice. Well, there's been a lot going on in the HP world.
Absolutely.
And so just thinking about how we navigate this, there's a fair bit to jump through. I guess, my first question would be, what are the things that you find most interesting in terms of, what HP, what HP is doing, the products that you've been dealing with, obviously across sort of the retail world, the end user organizations that you interact with. Where are you seeing the excitement, or where changes are getting people a bit of a step forward that maybe they weren't expecting?
one of the things that has really excited me about working at HP is having the opportunity to work with some of our partners, the people who contribute hardware into our devices. You know, you've got your CPU manufacturers, Intel and AMD, Qualcomm, your graphics card manufacturers, NVIDIA and AMD, and being able to utilize their technologies and to offer our customers stuff that they could realistically do on most laptops, but then also have an opportunity to add our own flavor of stuff to our HP devices. That has really excited me because I think the stuff that we add, the features that we add are generally quite a positive quality of life improvement for those particular categories.
Yeah, okay. So what would that look like? Because I guess we look at the different companies, the AMDs, NVIDIAs, Intel, Qualcomms, and so on. There are a range of companies. I guess they will sell to anyone, right? To a degree. But what makes that kind of interesting in terms of what you see HP's able to add?
Well, they enable us. They give us the hardware. We put it into our devices, and it gives us the framework to be able to do more with it. So a great example of this would be at a consumer level, HP AI Companion. Now, look, realistically, on most devices these days, you can use Copilot or ChatGPT, and a lot of people are using those. It's actually about what else can we do in a similar vein that's unique to our products. So a great example of HP AI Companion, we have the ability on it to choose whether you want your stuff to be or your data to be offline or online. So you can actually lock it down. On top of that, though, the usability of it is absolutely amazing. So an example of this, one of my favorite features that I generally and genuinely have used this for is I've taken examples of invoices and I've put it into a folder and I've told it to watch this particular folder. And I can ask the HP AI Companion questions in natural language, English, and get those answers back. So I think about if I was someone who was running a small business, how much did I invoice X customer in 2023? It'll say you invoice this customer this much. Which year was better for me? And it will come back to me in natural language, which I find to be really easy and usable. And that's one application for it. There's literally billions.
Oh, interesting. So that's, I guess, HP's layer of software that sits on top of and uses the NPU, the neural processing unit that we're now been starting to see, I guess, in recent times in the newer machines.
Correct. I mean, look, it's a mixture of things. You're using the NPU, you're definitely using the CPU, RAM, GPU. All these things contribute to the experience. And we get to use the best stuff out there, so it makes sense that we can offer the best experience.
Yeah, okay. Good. Well, maybe we'll drill in a little bit more on that later. Sure. Now, one of the realities for us as, technology comes into our world is over time it changes how we do things, how we operate, how we live our lives. I saw something coming through from Google. Maybe it was yesterday around the 20th anniversary of Google Maps, right? And there was this look back on, navigating around with a big, with big maps or map books and, how painful that experience, used to be, right? And I personally had a very challenging visit to, the first part of my visit to London on one occasion where, it's a reasonably long flight from New Zealand to get to London, and I'd agreed to meet a friend for dinner. And anyway, I'm trying to navigate London streets, and of course, it's not like, New York or American sort of cities where it's all lines. It's all circles out, and you can't read the street signs. Anyway, we didn't have the technology, and it was just, night and day difference to you go to London today. If you're in a vehicle, in an Uber or whatever, you can see where you need to go, and it's so different. But that was not the experience on that particular trip. And so, technology is creating all these new opportunities for how we work and how we live our lives. I guess, HP is part of that. So I'm kind of interested in terms of how does HP play into that world of helping shape the future of how we work, and how do you see that's even changed over the most recent years?
Well, I mean, AI is really the buzzword right now, right? And everyone's integrating it in some ways, shapes, and forms. Often when I'm experiencing technology for the first time or talking about it with people, similar to you, I like to think about what I take for granted. What is this replacing? I think about the world that my daughter's going to live in compared to me. A similar story, using maps to try and figure out my way to get to my first New Year's away as a teenager to Whangamata. And the fact that I managed to do that and follow a map is unbelievable, honestly.
Did you make it back afterwards, though?
Oh, I made it back. It was all good. I lost my keys there, but other than that, that's a different story. How I think HP is contributing to this, though, and trying to add something new, is we have such a wide range of products across a whole giant grouping of industries, right? So we do printers, we have gaming laptops and PCs, commercial devices, accessories, gaming accessories. And the integration of AI in those particular places are fixing problems that in some cases, it's just like magic. So like an example of this is the Omen AI gaming hub. Absolutely amazing. Using that, we can disable services that are running on the Windows PCs temporarily to make sure that we can have better latency for your peripherals, where we can do things like make sure that your frame rate is higher, because obviously for gamers, that's the most important thing, right? That type of integration across the stack is something that's really quite exciting. And I think that when a company like HP, no different to other companies like Microsoft and stuff, include this as a fundamental feature across the board, it really has the opportunity to change things dramatically for the end users.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess you've got that constant challenge in that, those companies you partner with, we mentioned, before.
Yep.
And, there's a whole range of things. The technologies kind of keep moving, but it's, how do you kind of keep that position, which, of course, HP's been very dominant in the New Zealand market. But, to maintain that, you've got to do well on a whole lot of different fronts.
Absolutely.
Now, the print side of HP, printing and HP have been, associated for a long time. I mean, when I look back to, my we'll just call them my younger years, printing and HP, that was kind of the main connection that I would have had with HP, was the HP LaserJet, back in the day, and so on. And of course, HP Compact came together, and the PC laptop sort of side of things, grew during that period. But looking at the printing side, what's happening in the world of HP from a print perspective? There's obviously that long background of HP innovating in print. Where does that kind of fit into the picture these days?
It really is quite amazing. It was the subject matter and the hardware that I was probably least excited about coming to HP. But it's actually been the one that has caught my attention the most, because there's so much to learn. And it is quite amazing the diversity of the tools within it. With HP, we've got some amazing initiatives. For example, with print. So an example of this, our sustainability drive within HP. Have you heard of Instant Ink?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what an amazing service that is. And I mean, as a really interesting fact, I read the other day that we have recycled 1 billion cartridges.
Right. So this is the model where you are on a program whereby you don't buy ink in the traditional way anymore. You're on some sort of monthly plan.
Yep.
When your ink goes low, HP are automatically alerted, and then via some sort of Star Trek type process, the ink appears next to you moments later. No, I think it actually did. It probably alerts a bit earlier, and it comes to you via mail or courier.
Correct.
Right. So a key part of that is the old cartridges actually go back and
come back
and
to
get recycled.
Absolutely. Our printers are also made out of recycled plastics, and that initiative is seen throughout this category, which is really, really quite cool. And obviously we do, so you've got your inkjet, you've got your laser. Another one is Smart Tank.
Yeah, so this is the approach where you get a printer which, instead of the sort of smaller ink cartridge, this has got a huge capacity, right?
Well, it's a bottle, like a squeezy bottle,
Yeah.
right? And you'd fill it up as you go. It's, I think, a really great way for people to experience our products, to use our products, but at their own pace, which is really quite cool. I mean, in the box, you get 2 years worth of ink when you first buy the printer, which is great.
Yeah, because that whole there is a kind of, I guess, a bit of consumer pushback around, the way that companies that sell printers operate, right? Because you've got, on one hand, it's like you can get this printer for next to nothing, and I've seen, HP printers for sub $100 at a retailer, and you're thinking this number doesn't really make much commercial sense on its own, but then for that model to work, it comes back to selling you, a good chunk of ink over a period of time. But by having these different models, it means actually pay the full price for your printer. You're paying that, largely up front. Then the cost of actually running it comes down a lot. That's kind of essentially how those models work, right? Because
Correct.
You buy a printer for, and I think I've seen them as low as $30.
That's correct, yeah.
And the retailer's taking their cut on it. GST's coming out. Clearly there's a bit of subsidising, going on in those, and an expectation of future ink sales, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's why we have such a wide range of printers, right? We give people choice on what aligns with whether it's their home use, their business use, how often they want to print. It's just like buying a PC or buying really anything. A bit of research is always an important one to do to make sure that you're purchasing the right product for your use case. And honestly, that's just thinking about it. One of my favorite things about my job specifically is I get to help the staff in the stores learn how to identify what customers would be interested in, what the types of questions they should ask, and then make sure that we get the right product in the customer's hands, because it's great for the brand, it's great for them, it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, you don't want a customer who's later is grizzling around the cost of ink when they were doing a lot of prints and they should have bought a printer that
best suited their needs, right?
Yeah. And while we don't see it, obviously, as far as I'm aware, at sort of the consumer level, HP has been pretty innovative in the 3D printing world. Whether it's the plastic sort of 3D printers or the metal ones that basically build something up, and there's been ongoing innovation in that sort of space. And I remember before HP had kind of, I think maybe before they made the full announcement, being at an event where HP talked about where these things were heading. I think, and when I was up in Silicon Valley at one stage, but that area has kind of continued to track forward, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
What anything you can share on that front?
I personally don't deal with them on a day-to-day basis. What I can definitely say is in our showroom, we've got an awesome little stand which has some 3D printed stuff that's been done on our printers, and the accuracy on them, and the fact that you can tell they've been done on a proper commercial printer. They look absolutely fantastic. They feel great. They don't have that same rough texture. I'm yet to play with one. I hope that they give me access to one eventually.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think it's one of those pretty interesting areas that most of us really don't get a chance to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but it is I guess quite a cool area, I think.
Absolutely.
There's a level to which in the early days of 3D printing it was kind of quite hyped in terms of the possibilities. I think we've maybe still got a little bit more sort of road ahead of us in terms of innovation and what that ends up leading to. Of course, we've got the likes of Rocket Lab and New Zealand with their 3D printed rocket engines, and then Team New Zealand, which HP have worked pretty closely with and helped them to be able to 3D print things in the past.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other areas that's always on my mind is cybersecurity, data privacy. We're all impacted by cyber criminals and their activities and their actions. we're impacted when organisations that we're customers of, or government entities, or what have you. When organisations end up, maybe falling a little bit short, shall we say, from that sort of cybersecurity and data privacy perspective. Now, most of us probably wouldn't be thinking of HP as really having a role when it comes to security. But one of the things that I've heard from HP is, hey, we focus on it being, security being baked in, being designed in, to a degree. So where does that fit? Where can you contribute to security, be it, PCs, printers, or other devices? How does that stack up?
One of the things that I've learned while studying the security side of things is that most security solutions are software based. But the experience with your devices starts far before that, right? Mm-hmm. Booting up a device, that's hardware and firmware. And these are the places where HP is playing with solutions such as our Wolf Security, where we're thinking about it from the very beginning. Are people modifying firmware? Because that's absolutely a place where bad actors are going to play in.
Yep.
We're able to start the security checks and processes from that point. And that's a key differentiator. We're not only doing software on our devices, but we're obviously responsible for the hardware too, the full story and the full package.
Yep.
And I think that not only will resonate with your average consumer, but absolutely is a selling point for businesses.
Right. So let's say as a consumer, you go and you're buying it's a laptop for your home use. Where would be the difference in terms of the risk for somebody buying that versus, say, buying another brand and they've got whatever security software, be it what's baked in an operating system level? What are the differences that would sort of compel someone to think, oh, HP are really a step further along? Does it displace other software and tools that people need, or how does that fit together?
I think there's always a place for more when it comes to security. I do believe at some point you can hit too much, but one of the differentiators on our side that really should resonate for most people is just our brand name in that particular placement. We have an amazing brand that has existed for such a long time. We're known for making quality, and I'd like to think, and I genuinely believe, safe products across, government use, across a whole range of different governments, right? And our stuff. So all that technology that starts off in the government space and in the really high technical stuff eventually does roll down. The people at a consumer level see the benefits of that. And I think that that's quite a big deal, personally.
Now, I'd read that with HP Wolf Security that can be used on HP and non-HP machines. I mean, are you seeing organisations that are mostly when I when I'm dealing with organisations, over time they will make differing sort of changes and the technologies and the vendors that they use. It's not the same, forever necessarily. So, are there organisations, you can think of locally who have just, we're 100% HP and that security piece is kind of part of the picture? I mean, do you see that driving much kind of change in terms of people, buying HP, or is that maybe more on the, the consumer side, or is it actually that, people are so enamored with HP Wolf that they're like, we're going to buy HPs. Any machine we've got that's not HP, we're going to buy the HP, Wolf security, capability and put that on top. Like, I'm just curious because it's not something I hear a lot about other than the marketing, and call me skeptical or something. I'm always kind of like, I want to understand the story and not just just
what we're telling you.
The top line on it. So
that's more of a commercial. The commercial team kind of deal with that a little bit more. Yeah, okay. What I can definitely tell you is when I have been in stores, or I've received calls from store managers and stuff like that, I've had people say the customer needs some help. They use HP at work and they absolutely love it. which device is best for them. And that, to me, I think Wolf Security kind of ties into that. If these people are using it at work, and security is never convenient, right? I'm sure, mobile, MDM, all those things, they always kind of get in the way of the experience. If people are using HP at work and they're happy with the experience and they're willing to spend their own hard-earned money to buy our consumer products, to me, that's a sign.
Yeah, that's an encouragement. I guess. I mean, I'm on an HP at the moment, an HP Elite book. I've been on for, I don't know, last few weeks maybe, and yeah, I'm not too sure whether this machine has anything in terms of that software, because often I guess an organization, organizations will vary in terms of whether they're going to use that software or whether they actually like, hey, we'll clean all our machines that are going to be configured exactly the same and so on. So I guess you're going to get variations there.
Totally.
Okay, but your impression is that this is something that's used at the commercial end as well as at the consumer end.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've always believed that if someone uses a device at work and it really doesn't wind them up, they're quite likely to purchase that device for that singularity of experience across their consumer and personal lives as well as their work ones. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe that's something we'll delve into a little bit more on another occasion.
Sure.
Yeah. The more I kind of look into it, it's like, oh, there is quite a bit. There is quite a bit in there in terms of HP Wolf and endpoint security and all sorts of other elements. But I'm not sure exactly how that would fit into to a lot of commercial environments. So
No, fair enough.
Cool. So looking at AI, this is, as you said earlier, big buzzword.
Yes.
I would say most of us have gone a certain way down the rabbit hole with experimenting and playing around with different AI tools. I was on the Herald's live show this morning with Ryan Bridge. We were talking around generative artificial intelligence tools from Suno, which can make a lovely song for you if you've got something you want to remember, turn it into a catchy song and sing along, and maybe that'll help you remember it. Or use some other tools and you end up with a podcast around something that you want to learn more about, so you can listen in. There are just so many use cases.
Totally.
But AI seems to be more and more a topic for HP as it is for others.
Yep.
I guess the challenge I'll often have is it's we were talking before the show about the AI coffee machine that we've got.
Yes.
And I guess there's different ways to describe what is AI, and machine learning can fit into that category. So I guess it uses machine learning or a simple algorithm to work out when you've got enough coffee and whatever the other bits and pieces are. But again, I'm kind of curious where AI fits into the HP world. I guess my first sort of experience of it would be along the lines of what you were talking about earlier, that AI capability now that comes with some of the HP machines, particularly or maybe exclusively if they've got the NPU, the neural processing unit incorporated, then that seems to be the trigger. But tell us a little bit more around how that fits together and who's using this stuff.
Well, I can definitely tell you I am. I'll tell you about HP AI Companion, which is that initial tool that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
So it has 3 modules. One is what we call Ask, and this is where you can ask it general knowledge questions. This will obviously go to the internet. It'll get your answer and give you back that answer. It's really, really quite easy. It's also got a really awesome snipping tool built into it. So you can actually snip something that's happening on your screen, and we'll use optical character recognition, OCR, or machine learning to try identify what that is and then provide you some context to that particular image. Obviously, it depends on what information you're giving, what you're going to get back, but it works really well. The next one is Analyze, which is an awesome feature as well. So Analyze will look at the hardware that you've got there. It'll tell you how much RAM you've got,
Yep.
your CPU cycles, all this different stuff, and help using AI optimize that to make sure you're getting the best battery life possible.
Oh,
It'll
interesting.
identify that you've maybe got something open that doesn't need to be open and suggest that we shut that down or put it to
Yep.
sleep for now.
Yep.
Because that's one of the key things with laptops, right, is battery life. And the last one is the one that I spoke about before, which was to be able to go through documentation, tell it to watch particular folders,
Yep.
and to give you contextual information, which
Yeah.
is honestly just genuinely like magic.
Yeah, that side certainly interests me. You know, and it's it's the reality that there's new iterations, new models coming through, whether it's ChatGPT, Copilot, Anthropic,
Yeah.
Gemini, Grok, like all of these things just kind of keep coming at us. So where's that delineation between where you use those tools and where you might use HPAI companion? What are the scenarios like for you as someone that uses this and experiments with it a lot? Where does that really stand out for you as being the HPAI companions spot on for this?
For me, it's about having particular access to particular files or documentation I don't want going onto the internet.
Yeah, okay.
I know that Office 365 offers this with their own version of Copilot, which obviously stays within the scope of what you have access to.
That's what you hope. Although I guess I was chatting to somebody around exactly this last week, and they were like, "I'm skeptical. I don't trust Microsoft. We want to do things,
Fair enough.
Elsewhere. We don't have that confidence." So different people are at different places in terms of what they trust. So yeah. So how does that work with HPAI companions? Does it all happen kind of locally on your device, or are there options to do things outside as well?
So you have a choice. There's a toggle basically which says I want to keep the information on device only, or I'm happy for it to go to the internet. So
Right.
the customer themselves has a choice,
Yeah.
which again to me is a really big deal. My favorite concept in technology is that it's designed to make our lives easier and to obviously in a lot of ways give us choice. And I love that that's what HPAI Companion does. You don't have to use it. To me, it offers more on device and less on the internet,
Yeah.
which is again depending on what you're doing on using it for. Is one of the most important things. Yeah. The other thing about it, which I think is really quite cool, is that it's designed for it to be as easy and simple as possible. Essentially, your gateway to your AI experience. Not everyone's going to jump into Grok or into Gemini and understand how to ask particular questions, how to frame up a prompt. And what we do with HPAI Companion is help guide that first and initial experience to get the most out of what you're using. In some cases, that's where people will probably stay as their AI experience. And some people are obviously going to want different functionality. Like, for example, the generative AI stuff. That's all great, and I use it all the time, but it is very much a small part of my AI experience personally.
Yeah, interesting. So if you're not using the Gen AI side, what are the other sorts of things that you'd do?
And it's all for productivity for me. To be able to aggregate documentation, for me to ask questions about information on my device. An example of this actually is the marriage between software and hardware here. I can actually through this say mute my speakers on my laptop. And if you don't know the hotkey, or maybe the key's broken, or you're in other software and that's not particularly working, it'll mute your laptop.
So
you
from within HPAI Companion, you can give
control.
controls to the
Correct.
system.
Correct.
Okay.
So you can lower the brightness. It actually works really fast and really well. It was quite an experience the first time I tried it, because generally you see the software thinking and trying to figure out where it goes. It was honestly lightning fast.
Yeah. Okay. And this sort of document actions in terms of access to your documents. I guess let's say you've got local files that are maybe they are synced up to cloud location, but if those are accessible and reachable within your kind of login on your device, so you can query and search for stuff amongst that, or can you get it to kind of collate information based on what's in those documents? What will it do? What are the kind of the the limits?
So my favorite thing about it is that it will only watch folders that you tell it to watch.
Okay.
It doesn't. It won't index your whole PC. That would be extremely taxing and build, I'm sure, a monstrous, page file or something somewhere. No, it doesn't do that. I'll give you another example of how I've used this. I was in a retail store about a month or two ago, and what I'd had is all of the Omnibook spec sheets, effectively. We put it into a folder, and I had the team there type in questions. I've got a customer who is a young mother who is looking for a device that will do this, this, and this. And by comparing the specs and the prompt the staff member was able to give them, it actually suggested 2 different options that would best suit that customer. They even put in, she's price conscious. So it takes that into account as well. I thought that was such amazing use of that technology. The truth is in retail stores, right? These staff have to know a little bit about so many different things.
Yeah.
So by doing this, especially having the customer next to you, it's almost like a journey that you both go on together. And it's not me telling you that's the right device because I'm getting a kickback or something like that from the company, right? This is the device taking your information. You've told me what's key to you. What are your selling points? What aren't you interested in? And this is the suggestion. Let's go and experience it together now. So, I thought that was really unique.
So what do you do if the AI comes and recommends a non-HP?
Well, it's only going to look at the documentation in the
You're
folder.
not going to give it that other documentation to compare with.
But do you know what? If that's how staff used our devices and demonstrated it to customers, I think that's an amazing win in itself.
Oh, 100%.
And would start the conversation about, well, I understand you're recommending this one, but why not that HP? I thought that was really quite cool.
Yeah. Exactly. No, it's good to have these real world use cases.
Totally.
So now you mentioned around this toggle between, whether it can go online or not.
Yeah.
What are the differences in terms of the things that can take place? What do you get? Is it kind of like the ability for it to go and browse online, or because you have that, say, you have a chat GPT, and if it's just using its data, then there's limitations and age to that data. But then when it can go online and browse, it'll take longer, but it's able to give you the latest info. So how what are those kind of subtle or not so subtle differences between online versus not, and is it actually storing things online, or is it more just drawing data in from browsing or other things online?
When it's offline and you're only browsing the on-device stuff, it'll utilize things that you could ask it mathematics questions, basic logic, stuff like that. But
Stuff that AI always gets wrong, right?
Well, I'd like to think that it knows what 5 + 5 is. But would I ask what the current situation is in a particular country or political things like that? No, I probably wouldn't, and I don't think you'd get an answer. When online, obviously, it's going to pull from that. The truth is, you're not running a large language model that will, trained large language model on these devices. The way I see it is, for general knowledge information, I would use online. I'd use it as an online tool, but to browse my files or to pull data from my files, that doesn't need the internet.
Yeah, so in terms of browsing, just working with your own files, then you're good. But if you want to ask it around Ryan Fox, I'm sure there've been a lot of people looking up Ryan Fox with his 2 wins in golf, including the Canadian Open this week. People are like, oh, I want to know more about this guy. He's someone where the information online today is going to be very different from any offline info, because Korea's just absolutely gone to the moon in just a few weeks, right?
Yeah.
So you need that sort of latest
the internet connection
info
for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like an example of how I used this recently, which is a silly one, but honestly, it just made things so much easier. I have a folder on my server that I run at home with all of my invoices I receive for all of my subscriptions, for example. We've been looking at trying to cut back on some of these subscriptions, and I was able to ask AI Companion, which I had indexed that particular folder. My wife and I were talking about it, and I thought, why don't I ask to see how much I'm spending on each of these? So I wanted to break down a yearly breakdown of that.
Yep.
And then also where it suggested I could make cutbacks. And, I was able to get some really cool stuff out of it. An example of this, it actually said, both you and Shannon are paying Google for the same storage volume, and why don't you just share? Yeah. And I know it sounds like a little one, but I don't know why that never crossed my mind. But, that's $20 a month saved. Great.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, you multiply that out, and
Totally.
I always like to multiply these things out to 10 years. It's like, there's a couple of grand.
Oh, totally.
It's
a nice
you probably
16
shouldn't spend it straight away, but that's the temptation, isn't it?
Hey, it's McDonald's for my daughter as a treat. It's all good.
Yeah, cool. No, that's really helpful. It's good to kind of piece together how these things operate. One more question regarding that HP AI companion.
Yes.
You were talking about you'd have a performance issue if you got it to be kind of looking at every file on your system.
Yeah.
What are the sort of the practical limits if someone's thinking, this would be really good for me, but I've got a lot of files? Is it the sort of thing where you go in before you use it on a given day and you point it at the files, or can you give the AI kind of access to a reasonable scale of files? Like what's the way that actually would work in practice for someone that's thinking, look, I am really interested in the privacy benefits of having on-device AI rather than relying on other options. And some of those, of course, have got some hefty subscriptions with them as well,
Absolutely.
right? So if you want to use Microsoft Copilot and have access to all your files, then over a 3-year period, that might be, I don't know, north of $1,500, right, in terms of cost for that subscription.
Yep.
Whereas my understanding is HP's AI companion, that kind of that's part and parcel of the device. So, can you just give it a little bit more insight there?
How I use it is I have a couple of folders that it is constantly watching.
Yeah.
I've got a particular folder that I put all of my spec sheets into when I'm building visual brand guides or sales guides or things like that. And that's always watching it. But I've only got maybe 2 or 3 that I'm constantly watching and indexing. I would think of it as no different to having a save file for a PowerPoint document, for example. If I need it to watch a particular folder and for it to index something, I'll quickly set that up. It takes honestly seconds. It's simply, you click a plus icon, you tell it to watch the folder, you click OK. It takes a few seconds to index all the files, figure out what it all is, what it says, and then you're good to go.
Right.
If
I
it
guess
took a
within
long
reason
time,
because of the size and scale and complexity of the files.
Yeah, I mean,
take longer.
I generally use PDFs.
Yeah.
That's what I find for me works the best and
Yeah.
it's the easiest.
Yeah, it'll do Word docs and Excel
Absolutely.
and images
Absolutely.
and so on.
So, and you can ask it questions. It's contextual about images and things like that. Show me a photo of a little girl in a red car, and if you've got a photo of that, it's going to pull it up. Yeah, for me, I think of it more as I deal with it on a project basis. So I would probably keep it reasonably clean, other than the couple of folders that I use every single day.
Yeah. And is there any sort of agentic aspect to it where you can have it on a daily basis or a particular, do something, or is it more it's an interactive type of thing that you...
More interactive.
Yeah, okay.
More interactive for that. But the key thing to take away about this is, so we're on essentially the new version of it. So the first version came out last year, about this time last year. The next version is just about to launch. It's constantly growing and changing and learning and getting new skills. And that's, again, the really exciting part. We're not trying to emulate exactly what everyone else is doing. I mean, you can jump onto the internet and open up ChatGPT or Copilot and away you go. It's actually about making changes and adding functionality that is different to those guys. Sometimes similar, but different. And I think that's the really cool thing about it is it's like a brother or sister to that particular software.
Okay.
Which is really quite cool.
And it definitely operates across the consumer and the commercial side. So,
Absolutely.
Everyone has that potential to access it if they're using an appropriate device. Yeah.
Absolutely, as long as they've got the appropriate device. But again, the availability of this particular tool will grow as we launch new products.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, the
Absolutely.
machine I'm on at the moment, I'm not sure that software on there. So if we've got listeners who maybe they've got a pretty new machine within their organization,
Yep.
and they don't have access to HP AI Companion,
Yep.
then that might be an opportunity for them to actually try that out, right? Because
Absolutely.
it might not have been in their kind of corporate build, but actually if their machine's, of the right specification,
Totally.
then it might well make some sense for them to be having a look.
Absolutely. Basically, if the device's name starts with Omnibook, in most cases, then it's capable of doing this. These are our new, the Qualcomm supported CPU devices, as well as the new Intel chips as well as the AMD ones. So we, being HP, we get to work with everyone, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So we've actually got a range of products, and that range is constantly growing. We've got an all-in-one PC that is now AI capable as well, which is really quite cool. And then there's still the gaming range on top of that, which has its own version of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You just mentioned, the Omnibook.
Yes.
We haven't delved into this rebrand within the HP world. So, what's happened to Spectre, Envy, Pavilion? Because these were kind of common names within the consumer range of products. So is everything turning and becoming Omni in terms of the consumer products?
Yep.
And then are there any changes in the
Commercial side?
enterprise business commercial sort of side of things?
Absolutely. First, I want to say I'm really excited about it. And the main reason behind that being, I know these names are synonymous with particular levels of quality when it comes to the devices themselves. Everyone knew if you had a Spectre, it was like, the best of what it could possibly be. But as someone who came from outside of this industry, it's not completely obvious that a Spectre is better than a Pavilion Plus, for example, when you look at the language that is used for it.
Right.
I think humans are inherently designed to know that 7 is generally a higher number than 3. And if the device has a 7 in it, it's most likely a higher tiered product at a different level. So this change to Omni is really quite cool. So Omni, obviously the word meaning all-encompassing, all one for it. Omnibook for our laptops, Omni Desk for our desktop PCs, and then Omni Studio for our all-in-one devices. From there, that word Omni is across the board, but then you have 3, 5, and 7, X, and then Ultra. So it's really easy to understand. And I think of myself when I'm talking to a customer, for example, it's not that conversation of is this one better than that one, because the number will tell us that from the very beginning. In my experience of talking about this particular story to staff in stores, they're absolutely so excited about it because it really does simplify the stack. So on a consumer level, you'll see us being uneven numbers, 3, 5, 7. And at a commercial enterprise level, we use even numbers.
Oh, okay.
So it's really easy for people to understand and to see. And I'm all for simplifying this for everyone. So I'm truly very excited for this move.
Right. Okay. So the commercial products will be
Even numbers.
with the Omni Omni name. So the other names that we're used to on the commercial basis, those are largely disappearing.
Yeah, it's a process, right? It takes time.
Yeah.
It's actually taken, at least on the consumer side, it's been quite quick. So we now have Omni 3, 5, and 7 and X and Ultra out in the market. And when I joined HP last year, we had just Omnibook X. So things have moved very, very quickly. There are still Spectres and Pavilions and Pavilion Plus devices out still in the market. But as we continue this and new models come out, you'll see them all changing to Omni.
Okay. So if the EliteBook I'm using was purchased, I don't know, if I purchase one in a year from now, it's not going to have EliteBook on it.
On the commercial side, devices they stay current for a fair amount longer for obvious reasons, right? That's what businesses are looking for.
Yeah.
So at the consumer side, I think it's moving a bit quicker than the commercial, at least to the best of my knowledge.
Yep. And now the Omen and HyperX brands, where do they fit into the picture? And I know some listeners will already be across this, but it's just good to get a reset on what's happening in the world of HP.
Look, I talk about productivity and all those other things, but the truth is while we empower people to be productive and to do their work on their devices and manage their lives, etc., the truth is we also still want to have a bit of fun. And this is really where those devices come in, Omen and HyperX. So Omen and Victus being our 2 gaming brands, Victus being the sub-gaming brand, they're just truly beautiful devices. I really like that they have a gaming aesthetic, but at the same time, they're not over the top. So a great example of this would be our Transcend 14. It's got a beautiful OLED display. It's high refresh rate. It's got a dedicated graphics card, really powerful chip, tons of RAM. That kind of device would fit into a gamer's backpack in the same way that it would fit into a graphic designer's, who would utilize that same hardware, the same powerful hardware to do their tasks. And I love that we have that choice for people. There's some people that are going to want your stereotypical silver slate device, and there are people that want something that's maybe a little bit more fits their personality, and that's really where these devices come in.
Yeah. And so what are the new things that are floating through from HP in terms of devices people might not be so familiar with? I mean, I guess there's, Polycom became Poly, that's now part of HP as well, right?
Yeah.
So video conferencing and headsets and so on. So that's probably more on the commercial side. But, then you've got things like microphones and, other like gaming type microphones, or I don't know if any of them are officially podcasting type microphones, but there's kind of this broader range of products that we now can see from HP.
Totally. Look, I think everyone who comes in and talks about the products that their brands sell always uses the specific word ecosystem, right? And your best experience is generally found within the same company's ecosystem. So a great example of this would be we've got these beautiful gaming headphones called HyperX Cloud 3s. I absolutely love mine. They're metal, they're closed back, the microphone is great. One of my favorite features actually being the fact that it's got voice pass-through. So my voice comes into my ears as well. It was a huge problem in my house when I was playing games. At night, my wife used to open the door and yell at me, "You gotta wake the baby." None of that anymore, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But the little USB dongle that we use to connect to is now integrated into some of our Omen devices. So you no longer need to have a dongle sticking out of your laptop.
Oh, right.
It's one more thing to lose, right?
Right, yeah.
And that ecosystem story is genuinely amazing. Our new Omen 16 Max, which is an absolute beast of a gaming laptop, can actually connect up to 3 devices. So you'd have your mouse, your headphones, and whatever else you wanted to have connected to it as well, to have the full mobile gaming hub wherever you are. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that type of innovation is really quite cool.
Yeah.
Another one being that Omen 16 Max I was talking about. We've developed this great tech with Intel where the fans on a laptop, and I'm sure you've opened up a laptop in your time and you see how full of dust it can possibly get in there. The fans actually spin the other way to blow the dust out.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
That's such a cool thing, and it's amazing that no one had thought about that before, right? Yeah, I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah. Now, you were kind of mentioning, having the dongle built in for mouse, keyboard sort of thing. I'm just kind of, curious because you're the fond of all knowledge on these things. As I remember some years back, HP, I think, built in one of the Bluetooth tracker technologies into a laptop. Is that something that sort of stuck to have kind of a Bluetooth tracker in a laptop? So if you ever left your laptop somewhere and you couldn't remember, or someone had wandered off with your laptop, did that technology stick?
It's definitely not in any of our current devices.
Yeah, okay.
I see the application for us. I wonder how people would feel with that being in their work device, being worried about privacy and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure that would be the most popular feature.
Yeah, you definitely you'd need some sort of hardware way to be able to
disable that, right?
Physical way to turn that off, right? Which probably adds some complexity.
Yeah.
So no, it was just one that kind of it sprung to mind, and I was curious as someone that has left devices behind in the past. I would never do it now. I've learned my lesson. I've never left anything behind.
We only make certain mistakes once, right?
I keep making these mistakes. So, sometimes this technology is helpful. But this is often the challenge with the technology, and the innovation kind of keeps moving forward. And then, we have to balance up some of those privacy aspects.
And sometimes businesses try something, even at our scale, try something. And if it works, great, you build on top of it. And if it doesn't, your next iteration, you pull that feature.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the benefits of being a big player in the game is you're pushed constantly to be innovating and adding new things and trying new things. And, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I'm just lucky HP has, generally the decisions they've made have stuck and worked out really well.
Yeah, it's good to see that ongoing experimentation and iteration, and not everything is a fit for the long term, but it's good to try them out.
Yeah.
That's great. I've been really, really good to have you on the show, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the effort to pop into the Podcast New Zealand studio and share a few insights on HP. Now, I'm sure there'll be other things in the future, some gaps we'll want to fill in, but that has been helpful. Anything that I should have asked you that we haven't delved into?
I think with some of these devices, the best thing to do is to actually go out and experience them, right? AI can get you so far and kind of narrow it down to a couple of different things, but it really is about the experience you have with the device. In a lot of cases, anyone should be able to walk into a store that sells our products and they should be able to experience these particular features that we've spoken about today.
Yep.
And I'm confident that anyone who does do this, and follows a similar script to the stuff that I've spoken about today, would really have a positive experience with our devices. I'm yet to have a negative one personally, and I try.
Well, thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
It's been great to have you on the show. And, of course, a big thank you to our show partners, Gorilla Technology, HP, Spark, 2 Degrees, 1NZ, and Workday. So appreciate their support. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
And the HP team for that support. Really good to catch up again and delve into the world of HP. Now, for folks that are curious around what's happening HP locally, what's the best way to sort of stay current on things like what we've been talking about from an AI perspective or other perspectives?
We have some amazing moves on the social media side of things. We've partnered with some great creators that have been doing some awesome stuff. But for people to go and check out the products in their retail stores is going to be your best opportunity, at least to experience the products. We have an HP branded experience center available inside of the PB Tech in Westgate, which is its own little section. You can come see HP in HP. You're able to go check us in our natural environment.
Natural habitat. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Thanks again, and thanks everyone for listening in. Of course, have you been listening to the audio, which it tends to be most of our audience, then do come and look for us on your video app, and then with the live streams you get an earlier access to the show. Yeah, well worth checking that out. Also, I should mention New Zealand Business Podcast, some really great tech content across there on NZ Business Podcast. So if you're not keeping up to date with those episodes, that's well worth a listen to. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you again next week. And thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Cheers.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.